So we'll just start in your childhood. So you were homeschooling.
Yeah.
As we know. How's your childhood influenced your career aspirations and your leadership style?
So I was homeschooled, the second oldest of 6 kids. We were raised on a farm in South Carolina. And the way that I think it has affected me is when you're homeschooled, you don't expect someone to just like spoon feed you information. Our mom taught us to, if you want to learn something, you need to go figure it out. And so that's something that I've applied to everything. And also, I think it was good brainwashing our parents did. My mom always said, you're a loser if you need to drink alcohol. Like, they're so insecure that they have to take drugs.
Sounds like my mom.
Yeah, they have to take drugs to alter their brain to feel confident enough to be blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh. So whenever somebody would, peer pressure us when we went to high school, we were like, ew.
Yeah.
So we were never actually really peer pressured to give in to all the list of bad things that high schoolers do. And by the time we went to school, we were really confident in who we are, what we wanted, and so I would just kind of create my own cool. And so I would come up with really fun things like giving back to elderly on weekends. Oh, you're cool if you come help clean up their yards. And we came up with really different fun things, and the way that's applied to my business now is we find areas that aren't cool yet, not always, and how do we make it cool? How do we create something that nobody believes in and make it awesome? And so that's, I'm really used to people saying, don't do that, you're an idiot, it's the stupidest thing you could ever do, blah, 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 for trying to make something great in that area. It's a horrible area. And now it's part of my checklist. Like, if people don't say that to me, then we're too late. And so I've turned it into, that's one of my good things to listen for, because it's opportunities to identify what other people can't see.
So would you say you've always been really entrepreneurial?
I wouldn't say that, actually, at all. No, I mean, my mom makes sure to tell me every time she sees me, she's like, you're the kid I never thought would ever do this. Never. You were just a mess as a child. Like, just fun and goofy. I cared about people and animals. I did not care about business or being serious ever. And so it's interesting to see how those things that I still care about so much are reflected in my business. But she was sitting here the other day, and she was watching me talk to somebody in the conference room. She's like, I still would never, ever. I'm like, that's not encouraging, Mom. But no, not naturally. And so that's what's interesting about my story, is that I feel like God, not tricked me into it, but tricked me into this. He gave me a really big passion for people, and he still animals too. And he let me go on mission trips. I thought I was going to be a missionary from the time that I was 12, and I'd save all of my money from the time, I worked 5 jobs at a time from 13 on, and I'd go on these trips every year. And I'd feel really guilty, because you shouldn't be mad the whole time you're on a mission trip. But I was mad the whole time. And I'm like, so frustrated. I'm like, we're not really helping anybody. We came all the way over here, and yay, I held babies and fed people, but I didn't solve anything.
So teach a man to fish versus...
Yes,
okay. But
that wasn't a big thing back then. I mean, it was just a really big thing to go on these mission trips, and you take pictures, and I don't know, it was creating welfare systems and a lot of entitlement, and I would see these kids come up to me with glue coming out their nose and saying, give me money, you're whatever you are, from America. And I did not like it. And so one of the best things that I've figured out over time is that your frustration can be such a great thing. So instead of getting buried and becoming a hater activist, you can say, what's currently happening is not right. The reason you're frustrated is because you probably have a vision of a higher standard. And so if you just realize that's the problem, then you can take your higher standard and say, here's what everything else is right now. How can I create, a movement around people doing it this way? How can I create the solution, which is exactly what you girls are doing, which is why I'm so proud of you and willing to do this interview at all, because I think you have a vision of a higher standard and a better way. So
what an incredible way to phrase it. I've never heard it phrased that way. So
that's the next question. Sorry, I'm going to switch your mic.
All right. I have 2 follow-up questions for you. I'll ask the first one and then the second. It seems faith has always been a leading force in your life. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that's kind of influenced the decisions you've made?
Oh, that's a good question. I've never had anybody ask it, actually. I've had a really real relationship with Jesus from a young age. I probably would not believe at the level that I do had I not had such powerful experiences. And they change your life. When you feel the presence of God in every molecule of your being, there's no greater high than that. And I've had a couple moments that I've been able to experience that peace and joy and love. And it's like, there's nothing better than that. And so I know he's real. It's been interesting. Ooh, I've never talked about this before. It's been interesting to have my own relationship in which I weave through the BS that people put on you. Not only as a Christian, but as a woman, as a Christian woman, as a da-da-da-da, you know, and to really experience the heart of the Father versus you should because you were born with certain body parts. And to experience God's love as a daughter, not here's your role, because a lot of people come in God's name, but they're using it in vain for control. And so I'm on my own journey and discovering out, like, how does that work? Because you grew up believing this, and then it's like, but this is really who God is? And it's just, there's a lot more love and grace than I had ever known. So that's, my story wouldn't be here if it wasn't for God. I mean, he's spoken to me directly, he's led this business, he's allowed me to go through really painful stuff, too. He's allowed me, but he's always been there. He never leaves us or forsakes us. And when you raise your hand and say, I want to do big things, God will prepare you for that. And that preparation is not normally easy all the time, but it's worth it. And you have a greater capacity, and you have the ability to speak into people's lives because you have experience and you overcame, you know? It never said it would be easy, but if you want to stand in the gap, which is what you ladies are doing, you're probably going to face a lot of really tough stuff over your journey. I don't want to speak that over you, but I'm just saying, be ready, because this is not easy or rah-rah. I found recently he gives you some good sound bites. You know, he lets somebody be horrible to you, say something really terrible, so that you can share that story later and people realize what you've had to overcome.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've had some people directly look me in the eyes and say, you will never make it, and here is why. And the closer that person is to you in your life with a title that you should listen to, be it a parent, a sibling, a spouse, a potential mentor, you know, whatever it is, speaking those fear-filled, sounds like they're saying it in love to protect you, but fear-filled words, the greater your calling is. If you try to follow that, so the closer they are to you in your life, the reason that I say your calling is higher is if you are raising your hand saying, I want to do something great in this world, God will let you rely on him and have your foundation in what he tells you to do, kind of like Noah's Ark. And if you rely on people and their affirmation of what you're doing all day long, you're never going to be entrusted with something that's never been done. Ever. Because you'll need people to tell you it's okay. And the reason the closer the person to you is that's better testing. Because you should be able to rely on those people. You should be able to have security in them. But if it's really great, then only God is the one that you can rely on. So I know it's a weird concept, and I'm still working through it.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, second question.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about when you're 18, finishing high school, and you have this deep, deep faith in God, and you're figuring out your relationship with him, and you have these aspirations to make the world better from your frustrations. Mm-hmm. What do you do next, and why?
Well, I was 17, and I was on a mission trip in Costa Rica. And it was a women's conference that we put on. Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, we were actually praying over everybody and just talking to the people who came. And we're in the middle of nowhere, up in a village in the mountains. I don't even remember the name of the town. And I asked the little girl, it was the very last person I was talking to. I asked her what her name is because I'm going to pray with her. And the translator, after the girl didn't respond, said she can't speak. And I said, why? I found out that she's like 8 at the time now. when she was an infant, her father had sexually abused her and destroyed her vocal cords. And I was so distraught because I looked in her eyes and I saw this like dark hopelessness that I knew she would never ever have a chance to get out of that kind of social norm. And I was really frustrated, and I was pissed and sad at the same time that not only had this happened to her, but it was socially acceptable for fathers to break in their daughters in this community, and sons, actually, their children. 1 out of every 4 babies, brand new babies, were dying from sexual abuse as an infant.
What?
That's what we think.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
It is disgusting.
Wow.
And so I had 2 options. I could go kill this guy right in that moment, which is how angry I was. Or I went back to my tent and I got on my knees and I prayed and I said, God, whatever it looks like, I want to be the one to come back and change what's socially acceptable. And so that moment was a huge determiner for the rest of my life. I came back and I've only heard God loud and clear a couple times, and this time he said, I'm going to take you out of the mission field and I'm going to put you in business. And I was like, no, anything but that. Business is so boring. I hate that idea. No. And I was like really upset because like my entire identity was, from the time I was 12, I was going to be a missionary, and I thought that was such a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I've got this like God calling. All right, so of course it's going to be easy because it's God. Wrong. For the next 3 years, I was a total failure at everything that I touched. I mean, everything. I tried so hard and I worked so much and it never worked. I don't watch TV, so I didn't know that there was a global economic meltdown happening at the same time. So I had no idea. I was like, oh, I'm a failure.
What were you doing specifically?
Well, I had gone to a class right after that, and they said, there was a guy that came in and he said, who wants to be a missionary? And I raised my hand. He said, did you know you can buy a house with no money down, and if your mortgage payment is $900 a month, but you rent it out for $1,200 a month, you get to keep that $300. That's a thing called cash flow. And I was like,
Genius.
go on. Yeah. That's a good idea. He said, do that 10 times, you can live in Africa. And I was like, what? So that's when I bought my first house at 18.
Could I ask you a question?
Yes.
What research did you do before you made that big move? Because buying a house is
Yeah.
buying a house.
Yeah.
Like, were you nervous? What were you feeling? Why did you go with that
Yeah.
opportunity versus others?
Great question. Did pretty much no research. I went and found somebody, and this tends to be my method because I actually don't like reading. I love audiobooks, but I don't like reading. I don't know why. I don't recommend it. But I've been like that since I was a child. My mom would have to like read everything to me. Just an audible learner, I guess. So I don't like research. So I went and found someone that was going to tell me how to do it. It was I was in a survival school, and it was one of the leaders of the survival school. And so I sat down, I took my notebook, and I was like, I'm ready to learn how to buy a house. And he went on about interest-only ARMs and and all this stuff. Like, what? And so I wrote down, do not buy a house. And so they actually ended up peer pressuring me into it.
Who's
and the person I went and met with, they were also an agent.
Okay.
And I don't know if they wanted a commission or believed in me, and whatever.
Yeah.
So they pushed me really hard, and I bought a house. So had no idea what I was doing. Had never written a check before, but in 2007, they lent to anybody.
Yeah.
And so it was perfect because it was really easy to get a mortgage. Literally within the next month, the economy tanked. But in the process of buying it, these people were amazing. April Cleek is her name, and she's definitely someone you should interview.
Would love to.
They taught me that you can do this thing called flipping houses. And in the process of flipping a house, you could make like $10,000.
Were you actively asking these questions, or were you putting yourself in a community that?
Well, they're showing
that
me
was
crappy
involved?
houses.
Okay.
And because it's
Like
all
your
I could
agent?
qualify for.
Okay.
And so then they started telling me, well, if you fix it up, you could do this. And I was like, what? What is that? Because I didn't watch TV. I'd never heard of flipping houses.
Yeah.
There weren't shows back then. It sounds crazy now. But so I heard that you could make like $10,000 when you sell it. And if you saved those chunks of $10,000, you could have $100,000. With $100,000, you could buy an apartment complex. And then those things make $10,000 a month. And with $10,000 a month, I could build orphanages, and nobody could ever mess with my dream, ever. Because I had this horrible little dream of like saving this kid on the street and it dying in my arms because a sponsorship check didn't come in, and I was like, no. And so I was like, screw that. Make my own freaking money. I will. And so that was my plan. Like, my little non-researched plan was like, God's not telling me what to do. And that's where I think a lot of Christians get caught up. They're super entitled, thinking that God has to tell them every step. And I heard an amazing quote today from my friend named Ginger, who said, if God doesn't tell me not to do it, I just do it. So I was like, that's a way better rule than sitting around waiting for every single step, because he says, I am with you. Yeah. You know, I'm not going to leave you. So yeah, don't sit there and mooch. So bought that house and learned about flipping houses, and I made a decision in my mind. I said, all right, here's my plan. I'm going to flip houses, and I'm going to buy an apartment complex before I turn 26, because I don't want to be old when I'm a missionary. And so that was my plan.
So that was always your driving force, your like end goal was to...
Always.
Okay.
To do that and move. You know, by the time I'm 26, I'll be financially self-sustainable enough to be able to build my own orphanages and live in Africa. That was my plan.
And how did you learn about like the housing market and how to flip houses?
Well, I Googled. All right, so I went to this missionary training school, and it's also a survival school. And then I Googled, all right, what colleges teach you how to flip houses? Mm-hmm. Nothing. I was like, crap. This is me being very practical. I guess I'm not going to college. And so I tell my family that. They're like, what? And they were not super big fans of that idea. But I'm like, why would I go if they don't teach what I want to learn?
Yeah.
Well, that's just what you do. And I'm like, why? So that is one other differentiator. Is I'm very common, very practical. If it doesn't make sense, why would you freaking do it just because everybody else does it? It doesn't make any sense. If I'm not learning what I want to learn, I can't learn it there. I need to learn it somewhere else. So I knew I would have to find people that were in the industry that can teach me. So that is one of my biggest advice to young people in getting their career going. If you can, go wherever you need to be educated. I'm extremely pro-education. I've actually spent more than $400,000 going to different courses and classes all over the world. I spent $45,000 on like a 3-day class one time. And people are like, oh my gosh, that's insane. I'm like, yeah, but I've made over $1 million from what I learned. I mean, huge fan of learning. Only listen to audiobooks. Don't even listen to music.
I know, I was going to say, were they all audio?
Yeah, but there's courses and classes and things you can go to in your niche. So wherever you need to get educated, you have to get educated. End of story. Don't think you can just wing it.
I have another question for you then. So I'm sure a lot of young people in college or starting their careers are like, I don't know what industry I want to do. I don't know what role I want to do. And it seems like you knew early on, like, I'm going to flip houses. Like, this is how I'm going to do it. What advice would you have for people who haven't found that, one calling?
That's a great question. The biggest thing I've got for you is that you don't know what you're doing, okay? You never will, ever. I still don't know. Because we only have a piece of the picture. And so if you are, I don't care what you believe, if you are not faithful with the piece that you do know, you're not going to get the next picture. You know, I look at it like a giant puzzle, the greatness of your life. If you knew your capacity, if you saw the full picture, you'd be so scared you'd never take that first step, ever. And so that's why God won't let you see the whole picture day one. You just can have this is what I have, what can I do well with it? Once you start taking those steps, you'll get the next puzzle piece and then the next one. And sometimes you'll get a glimpse of a piece that's over here and it won't make any sense. And they normally come in the form of some kind of desire. Not like a weird desire, but good ones, pure ones. And what's been fun is realizing that I've seen these little pieces over here and I only get to work on these right now, but I end up getting to them. And oh my gosh, that's why I've always been passionate about that since I was 4. That's why I've been in love with space since I was 6. There's all these little things in your heart that if you don't forget them, you just have grace with yourself to know that I just don't get to work on this yet. Then you won't live in this despair of missing out. I think there's a huge fear in our generation.
FOMO.
Yeah, but it's not just it's that. It's also like a lot of parents weren't intentional with their life, and they got to the end and feel like they didn't have anything that mattered, And I think that for us, we want to do things that matter every day, which is a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just don't think it's going to look like Instagram, because it's not. It's going to suck. And if you can do the parts that suck, then you'll have your Instagrammable moments, you know, along the way. So I don't remember what the question is anymore.
You answered it.
Okay.
It was your advice
Yeah.
for people who haven't really figured it
Yeah,
out.
just do great with what you do know.
Mhm.
So I thought that flipping a couple houses and moving before I turned 26 was the way.
Mhm.
But in that time that I was being faithful with that vision, which is the biggest I could think of, by the way. That was the biggest I could think of. And in the process, I kept going back to Africa because I didn't want to lose my calling,
Mhm.
my vision, so important. I saw that through real estate development, because at the time I wasn't even developing, you can create economic hotspots. And I did that while we were developing an orphanage. We found this area where it was so impoverished that families were selling their kids into sex slavery. They're 2-year-olds. And for $25. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's just no industry. And so it's you sell this kid or the whole family dies. Those are your options. So it was that bad. That's why we picked this spot. And in the process of developing it, all these businesses moved in and bought all the land around us because we were developing something. And it hit me right then that if you can create a hot spot by sharing the vision of the potential of something, then economies can move in, people can have opportunities they never would have had, and then you wipe out poverty at its roots. You wipe out sex slavery at its roots. There's no need for it because there's other opportunities.
You're amazing.
You know?
Hence the video production, like creating a story behind a property.
Exactly.
You're so
I
smart.
love that.
Well, the concept behind the media production company was when I looked in that little girl's eyes, I knew that she was not valued as anything. I knew that she was not valued as anything other than a sexual object because no one had shared a picture of something different, which we were talking about earlier. And if we could eventually create TV shows that showed women and children as valuable or in leadership positions or this, then people will just view them differently. I don't know, but media is the fastest way to share ideas.
100%.
Objects
Yeah.
are so important.
So create the new normal as if it were normal. That's been my thing. Callie, those have all been horrible sound bites. Sorry.
Every time I stop, you say something good.
Sorry.
Let me just say something real quick.
What do you want me to say?
Just say the media production company was started because I looked in that little girl's eyes and realized that unless you set a new standard, she'll never have a new standard.
Great.
Something
Cool.
like that.
Sorry, guys.
No, you're so good.
The concept of creating media and production company came from looking in that little girl's eyes and realizing that if we don't share a new normal, she'll never, ever, ever be looked at as something else.
Can you talk a little bit about some of your lows and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you have a lot. That's a whole story.
Which year? My lows. So I moved to Nashville. I had this great dream of flipping houses, and I started calling the We Buy Houses signs. Again, didn't have any support system. Everybody in my life, without naming names, was being pretty mean about not going to school, and then telling them I wanted to get into real estate as the market's crashing. People thought that was a bad idea too. They were
How did
probably
you
right.
not
Yeah.
listen to all this
I was
noise
just
and like,
gonna
oh
say
shoot,
that.
is this a bad idea?
I did think it was probably maybe. I mean, I didn't
Okay.
know, and then the biggest temptation that I like to warn people about is when you hear all those negative voices, your natural reaction is, well, I'll prove you wrong. And you hear a lot of successful people say, the best revenge is to prove them all wrong,
Mhm.
da, 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 da. But you are not going to be a happy person at the top. If your fuel is vengeance and proving yourself, you're going to be a jaded, toxin-filled, ugly person. And for me, I would have to hear those voices, and I've learned this over time. I did not know this day one. I wish someone would have shared this with me. I'd hear those voices, and I would remember that girl. And I'd look at them, and I'm like, in my head, I don't say this out loud, doesn't mean, like, you weren't there. You weren't there. You don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. This has nothing to do with you when I decided to do it. So why am I going to take your stupid opinion of whatever, or your love-sounding opinion, or your whatever opinion because you're fear-driven, and apply it to my life when I know I'm not going to quit? Whatever it is, I'm going to figure this out. I'm probably going to fail because that's part of it. And I'm okay with that. This makes for a great story later anyway.
So,
you know? But you have to be okay with failing. You have to be okay with everybody telling you you're dumb. You have to be okay with that stuff because you have a powerful enough why.
Mm-hmm.
And your why doesn't have to be an amazing moment with that little girl like I had. It can be, this is what I'm passionate about, and I'm not going to freaking quit. So there's again, the worst voices are the ones that come in the spirit of love from people who love you.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the hardest ones to keep going forward because you're used to hearing them and actually applying what they say in your life. But the best advice I ever got was to look at them and say, do I want to be like you in that specific area? So you might have a great marriage, but you might be terrible at business. So I'll take your marriage advice
Mm-hmm.
and I'll apply it. I'll be kind when you're interacting with me, but I'm not going to actually put those words into action in my world unless I want to be like you and I would actually switch places with you.
Mm-hmm.
If not, you're just talking. You don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the best advice I got because there is a whole world of voices out there. And which ones do you listen to? The ones you want to be like.
Wow.
Boom.
I love that.
I love that. So
Can
many
you-
good.
Yeah, honestly. Can you go back to when you said you moved to Nashville, and the process that you went through, that came together when you launched aerial development, like the steps that you've gone through, like your positions and jobs,
Yeah, so I decided I was going to flip houses, called the We Buy Houses signs, found one person that flipped houses. He told me that I could, if I worked for him, he would teach me. I ended up working for him, had nothing to do with flipping houses, and I never got taught and everything, you know.
What did you do?
I was a loan officer, and I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah, what is it?
No. Basically, you get people's information and you try to help them get funding to like buy a house
Mm-hmm.
or refinance their house or something like that. Had nothing to do with flipping houses, but it ended up becoming an amazing education because I understand loans.
Yeah.
Super boring to an 18-year-old, but it was so educational. It was really
Yeah.
good. So I didn't understand then how it had to do with it, but when you, instead of being frustrated or disappointed in your life ever, tell yourself automatically nothing is wasted. Nothing is wasted. I may not know why I went through this now or learned this now or even worked for that for a year and nothing even worked out, but in 10 years from now it'll probably pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Much better life if you view it that way.
Yeah.
I agree.
You'll keep hearing me say something like, view it this way, view it that way, because if not, your brain is made to keep you in survival mode and tell you, bad, this is bad, get away, you know? Instead of, yes,
Don't do that.
I really wish people would have shared better perspective moments with me and how to look at things as I'm learning, then I just would have been happier, I think, as I was learning, instead of, when things go wrong, you always feel like you're being punished, you know? So when you realize that things go wrong and people are mean to you or sue you or you have haters or stab you in the back or whatever it is, it doesn't mean you did something wrong necessarily. It can, but just be able to sleep at night and do the right thing.
Yeah.
So
How long did you do the loan roll for?
I did it for a year,
Okay.
and that was in 2008, which is the worst year
Yeah.
you could have ever done it. And so I ended up having to wait tables at the Cheesecake Factory. So I'm waiting tables at Cheesecake Factory, end up meeting these two guys, end up having conversations because I was teaching myself, again, the homeschool type thing. I was studying 12 hours a day, everything I could get my hands on with real estate investing, again, like Googling stuff, buying books, like finding ways to learn on my
Audiobooks are
own.
for you.
Yeah. I do read too. I like other books better. Yeah. So I ended up having a really interesting conversation with these people where they were impressed that I was so knowledgeable, and they invited me to come to a conference. At that conference, over that 3-year period, I think I was like year 3, that I had learned no matter how starved out I was, God had been teaching me to give first. And so at that conference, I took the speakers who were all millionaires to dinner, and I'm like praying my credit card goes through. You know, I'm like, So because
How
I
did you
knew
get connected with the speakers?
at waiting tables.
Those two men who were the speakers.
Yeah,
Okay.
they put on the conferences. So they invited me as a guest because they're like, we believe in young people, we'll help you, which was awesome. And so ended up meeting these speakers. The farthest table away from me, this guy said he's got all these deals piling up on his desk. Again, I'm on this 3-year journey just to learn how to flip houses. I didn't even get to flip one yet. And he said, I got all these deals piling up on my desk and nobody to run them. I need an assistant that I can teach how to do deals. And I was like,
Ooh, yeah.
well, you have to move to Nashville right away. And I was like, what? Okay. So I've never been to Tennessee before. I packed up my bag. I rented my house out to these guys on Craigslist. Surely they'll be safe. And that's going to work out great. I rented them the house out and I moved. I took a job that was $650 less than the minimums on my credit cards. Now, I'd been living on these credit cards because none of my loans had closed in 2008. Now, I always paid my bills. Don't ever not pay your bills, ever, ever, ever. I've never, ever not paid my bills. But it was hard. It was like one credit card paying the other credit card. It was awful.
Wow.
So moved to Nashville, and I'm telling my family, this is going to work out. So this is 2009. Work out. I'm finally going to learn. God's blessing me, blah, blah, blah.
And this is all because you met a guy at a conference?
Yeah.
Is that how you found the opportunity?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I moved within like 10 days of that.
That's
Boom.
amazing.
And everybody's, you're crazy, this is dumb, it's not going to work, the economy's terrible, real estate's stupid, da-da-da-da-da-da, Lehman Brothers just tanked, whatever. And I was like, it's going to work. It's God. So I came up here, I'm working my butt off, and I get fired within 60 days. The first month's rent check bounced on the guys who were renting my house out. And so I now have this mortgage payment, I've got all my credit cards, and I don't have a job. I can't tell anybody, but they just did away with this position. So I'm like, I don't know anybody here, and I'm the only girl at all. I have no friends, again, and I've like, the guys won't move out of my house. I've got to evict them. I don't know how to evict anybody. You know, I'm 20 now, I think. Yeah, 20. And I was pretty stressed out. I was pretty stressed out, and so I ended up moving into my car, and that was fine, whatever. But the day that I got fired, I met these two guys at a conference. Because again, there's always a seed of equal or greater opportunity in every obstacle. It's my favorite quote. So in every obstacle carries with it a seed of equal or greater opportunity. So in the moment of getting fired, that same day, I met these guys. But it's up to you to find that seed.
How'd you find it?
They were being really loud at the conference. They were just being really loud and talking about all these deals they do. And I was like,
You just went up to them?
So I'm in this horrible, desperate situation. I just got fired. I got a mortgage payment. I have credit cards. I'm not going to not pay my bills. I've got the death pressure of debt on me.
Yeah.
I have nothing to offer. And I went up to those guys and I said, can I work for you for free?
But you need to make money to pay your bills.
I wasn't worth any money then,
Oh
you
my
know?
God,
I
you're
didn't,
crazy.
but yes,
Wow.
that's the thought process. And so, and they said no. And I was like, please. So one of the two guys let me come in and do paperwork for them for like 3 months. I was like totally starved out. And then I got one meeting with the top guy. His name's Paulie. And so I got one meeting. He put me through the ringer. Because people who are going to be good for you put you through the freaking ringer. Made me meet him at 5 a.m. at a house all the way across town. And I was so ready. I made breakfast. I brought him breakfast. And I was dressed up. And I took notebooks and da-da-da. Just to have one day with him. And he was so tough on me the whole time. Barely talked to me. He was on his phone the whole time. And wouldn't tell me how I can help at all. And at the end, I mean, again, I'm sitting there just trying to create value. I'm like, can I please meet with you tomorrow? He's like, I don't know. I was like, please, I'll write notes down while you're talking. Like, so I just started finding ways to create value so he would keep me around so that I could learn.
Like what?
Yeah. What?
Like what?
So I would hear his problems. I'd just overhear him on the phone. And every time I heard his problem, I started figuring out how to create a solution. So when he wasn't on the phone, I'm like, how would you do that? And then I would go do all the work. So I found, they needed more deals. All right, well, how do you find projects? How do you even find them? And then I'd learn, and then I'd bring him some, and he'd tell me which ones are horrible. And then how do you find the funding for them? How do you design them? You need more subcontractors. You're having a problem with your agent selling them. So I became an agent to sell them for him. Whatever his issues were, I went and filled the void so that he would keep me around.
Okay, yeah.
So that was like,
constantly adding value.
you got to create value. You have to create value, or high-level people won't keep you around. I mean, I have a lot of people who want to learn from me. Oh, I'm going to come learn, I'm going to da-da-da, all da-da. You are not trying to create value. You're trying to suck off of someone, not push towards what they're going for. I mean, that's the best way you find a mentor is what are they passionate about, which if you want them to be your mentor, you're probably passionate about it too, and how can you serve their cause. If you are adding to their world, no one's going to say no to you. End of story. Don't care who they are. They're not going to say no.
And how do you add value?
Figure it out. Yeah. Figure it out.
Answer.
Yeah. That's nobody's ever going to really tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
You have to figure it out.
that is one of the things that people who go to lots of school have to overcome.
Mhm.
Is they're used to being told what to do. Because you're trained to go into the system. But if you're going to it's great training, but if you're going to do something a little different and or meet people at different levels, you have to really think outside the box and do not assume anybody owes you anything, that your job is stable. That's the worst idea. Your job is not stable. The boss can wake up and fire you that day. There's nothing stable about that.
Yeah.
What is stable about that? It's the biggest lie ever. And yeah, just finding ways to create value instead of just showing up. There is limitless opportunity for people who find ways to create value.
That's such a good line for interns who feel like they're at a company and not doing anything. They're like, no one's giving me an assignment.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
that's
out.
I don't
huge
have time.
problem.
Come to me and say
Yeah.
what you can do to help us. I don't have time to even sit there and come up with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Wow, cool. And how did you pay your bills while you were working for free?
They had these horrible rental properties, and they were paying someone a commission to try to rent them, and they couldn't be rented. They were $300 a month. They were like in the worst neighborhoods. And I said, if I rent them, could I have that commission? Like, yeah, I don't think you can, but if you can.
Challenge accepted.
So, yeah, I mean, and I'm actually not like a challenge yourself person. I don't know who is like that. That sounds great, but I'm just not that motivated, I guess. But I was pretty desperate, and so I filled up all their rentals, and I cleaned them myself. I'd fix them. I'd spend money on, you know, I'm on my hands and knees in the hood, getting roaches out and cleaning up needles and mold, and you just do it. And so that's how I'd survive, is these little tiny commissions along the way. And so that's how I survived. And then at the end of 9 months working for free, they said, all right, get out. Go do this on your own. You have to. And I was so scared. I mean, by the way, this entire journey, terrified. Terrified
Yeah.
all the time. Still terrified every day. Terrified. Poor Callie. She hears way too much about it. But it's scary. And it's still scary. But the difference is, just because you're scared, you don't stop.
And what's driving you is your like mission to
Yeah.
help feel good.
Now, it's still tempted to quit all the time. But if you can remember and find ways to remember
The why.
that it's not just about you, you know, and that's what the name Ariel is for me, is keeping the big picture in mind. And remember, this is about creating opportunity for others. And so I see the name Ariel. Every time I see it, I think about it. Every time. So
You're amazing.
find different ways to do it for yourself.
It's 4:10. 4:06.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just to let you know.
thanks.
Should we jump to the...
Yeah, is this taking too long, ladies?
Oh
No,
we
no.
could be here.
Yeah.
We will be here all day. It's,
Yeah.
we're more concerned with your schedule. So
Yeah.
whenever you want, kick us out. Just be like 5 minutes ago.
I'm trying to remember. I can
Yeah,
jump
that's
through a
fine.
couple things in that your last question, because I just stayed. I think what I just said is pretty valuable for
Mhm.
young people to understand that nobody owes them anything.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
you guys are creating like a legit graph of like her life, or was that just like metaphor?
I mean, this story is more important, but yeah, to complement it, we do like a little map.
Cool.
Yeah.
So are there any like specific things that you were confused about in terms of timeline that you just want to like?
We'll probably just have to
say?
draw that for
We
them
can-
and then make it prettier.
Yeah, we can follow up with you guys and get like specifics because that can be done
Okay.
anytime.
We have till 4:30.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
So I'll quickly go through the rest of her question because timeline-wise it'll matter.
Thank you.
So at the end of working for free for 9 months, they said, all right, go do this on your own. Scared to death. Still took a couple months to really figure it out. But January 2011, I did my first project by myself. And I didn't have any money. I never had any money to do almost anything that I've ever done. But you get it and you figure it out. And you do it without lying or being weird too.
Yeah,
But first house that I got, I didn't have the money, so I got under contract owner financed. And so that means that the seller doesn't make you pay them off before you start it, but then when you sell it, you have to pay them off. So it was $47,000 in a place called Germantown, which was a terrible area at the time.
Wow.
Terrible area.
That's changed.
That's so
That's
funny.
crazy.
And I
It's a
got
good
it.
thing you were in Nashville.
Yeah,
It's a good
yeah,
place to be.
yeah.
Wow.
It was great. But it was a horrible neighborhood at the time, and it was on Arthur Avenue. So I got it under contract, and then used my friend's credit card. We spent maybe $5,000 on materials, did a lot of the work ourselves, had to fire 2 crews, and so it was horrible, and was so excited. Finally was going to close. So much more drama went on behind the scenes. It's ridiculous. But day before closing, the door frame gets kicked in, and these people on drugs came in and stole the appliances, destroyed the wood floors, robbed all the copper out of the house, and everything. So closing gets delayed 3 months. But when that house finally closed, I made $40,000, and that was the first money I'd actually made ever in like almost 4 years at the time. And I was like, oh.
Finally.
So after that one closed, I became the biggest rehabber in Nashville. I did over 100 houses in the next year. How did you find houses? Oh, girl. Well, by working for free, I learned which ones are good and which ones are bad. Which areas are good, which ones are bad, what are the 9 types of houses not to buy, how to manage a crew. And I would just drive in. I'd go through 3 tanks of gas a week, and I would put in more than 60 offers every week. I'd stay up all night. I didn't sleep very much. It was not healthy, but it's who I was. And so I got a lot of houses, and banks wouldn't lend at the time, so all of it was private money. And I got private money by working for free at the Real Estate Investors Association. And the little tiny bits that I would learn, I'd teach classes. Because at the time I was like, people listen to people who teach. and I had really good presentations. So at 21, I'm sitting here, the only thing I'm good at is pictures and technology. So I knew, not pictures of me, but most of the people in this didn't have technology. Mm-hmm. And so they're looking at me and saying, yeah, right, you can't do this. But when I'd show them before and after pictures, they'd believe me. Yeah. So I put together these portfolios. And
anyways.
Yeah. So I did over 100 houses over the next year and next couple years, and then became the biggest infill developer in the next couple years after that, and then became one of the biggest urban redevelopment companies in the entire state, which is super fun. And that entire vision has come from going to orphanages and seeing that you can create economic hotspots. And so I knew that in Africa it was going to be really hard to buy land, period, and to get a lot of momentum there. And so I said, how can we practice the concept of transformation in my own backyard, mm-hmm. which is how we got into urban revitalization at all. It was, how do you take somewhere broken, nobody believes in, and make it awesome? And so if you look at a map of the areas that we have the greatest presence in, they're the fastest appreciating areas in the nation in some of the places, which is super fun. So it's been a mix of redeveloping what is falling apart, and also sharing the vision of hope for the area and elevating what is working through media and production.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that was great. That flowed nicely. Question.
Yes.
So you were a pageant girl, right?
Oh man. Yes.
How has, because the stigma around pageants, just from an outsider's perspective, is it's like showcasing beauty, and of course there's a lot of good behind it, but that's what you see are like beautiful women. Did you find it difficult or challenging to be taken seriously, and how did you overcome that?
After I did pageants and then was in construction, you mean? And everybody found that online?
No!
Yeah, that was fun. You work for that there pageant queen, beauty queen. That was what the subs would always say. Yeah, that's what the subs would say to my builders.
How did
they still say that crap, but
and Forbes.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You know what's interesting
what did they do?
I read the article.
We'll tell you.
Yeah, I hated that article so much because I never talk about it because it's not my identity. But it was amazing training. And God told me to do it. So, super tomboy. Mm-hmm. Super tomboy.
Me too.
Did not want to do it. Was not into it. My sisters did it and I was like, eh. It was way harder than like swimming with sharks. It's one of the most annoying things and hard things I've ever done. Because you're just, everything about it. Mm-hmm. But I did win Miss North Carolina United States. And
why did you get involved in it?
I felt like God told me to do it. And I was like, why?
But why that?
Huh?
Why that? Like,
I didn't know.
Okay.
I was like, why? But it ended up being one of the door openers at that table, at that conversation. And so I'm like, maybe that was it. But I have used what I learned in pageants every single day.
That's awesome.
Great
How-
skill set.
How to walk in heels, how
Yeah.
to dress, how to carry interviews, how to be confident on stage, answering questions. A lot of interviews.
Yeah, those are some epic heels.
Things of what to do, what not to do. I mean, it was really good, just professional training, because it wasn't like world peace. The United States system cared about your platform, not about your talent or about being a model.
Mhm.
Is there's a lot
Your brand.
Yes, and so it was your platform. If you win, what would you promote? And so for me, it was financial education. Because I learned at 18, nobody ever taught me jack squat about this stuff. I'm not ready for the real world. Why aren't they teaching this in school? They're teaching this stupid stuff
I'm
that
writing
we'll
a paper
never
on
use.
that, actually. Yeah.
Huh?
I'm writing a paper on that. Like,
Oh.
millennials don't invest because
Right.
they
know
don't know
nothing.
how to do it.
We don't know how to do anything.
Yeah.
That matters. Everybody
Yeah.
goes to school all these years to make money and don't know what to do with it. Like, yeah, I'm like, this
They're like,
is stupid.
hey, so I know marginal benefit, marginal cost. What do I do with that marginal cost curve?
Right, the nucleus of your cell. Is, like, we should learn both.
So true.
Yes, so
I can play that all the time.
Yeah.
that was my platform, which was
Okay.
very different than everybody else's, breast
Yeah.
cancer or something like
Yeah.
that. But it was great, and I got to go in after I won. I got into a lot of schools, and I would teach middle schoolers and high schoolers the difference between the way that the rich, poor, and middle class process information and make decisions. So it was really rewarding. I still have people reach out to me.
There's a podcast
those
like
classes.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
reminds
that.
me of that. Yeah. Okay.
So,
So how do you
everything
how
I
do you
do.
combat people that say, "Oh, you pageant queen," like, then speak demeaning towards that?
I don't
when
get
you
that
work in-
anymore. I don't get it anymore. I'm just bomb at everything that I do.
Yes.
So people don't really F with me anymore. I mean, they just don't. I mean, it sounds whatever, but they just don't. I mean, they did for 10 years. And they just don't. Because they were used to successful women looking like this. They don't look like you. And for me, I really wanted to still be me when I got to wherever I was going. I didn't want to have to change to be taken seriously. I'm very intentional about not wearing immodest clothes or posting swimsuit pictures or anything like that online, because I do want, even though I'm not against people doing what they want to do, but for me, I want to rebrand the look and value of women and saying that we're worth more than just being beautiful or just being sexy or just taking a million model freaking pictures for Instagram. You know, we're valuable because we're smart, we're valuable because we're contributing, we're valuable because we have great ideas and we can build incredible businesses with a different spin on them. And
Yeah.
so that's what we like to showcase on any platform that we have.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, it's
Beautiful.
ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think our website also focuses on more like the career and aspirations rather than maybe beauty and
Aesthetic.
aesthetics.
Like, it's still aesthetically pleasing, but it's not like.
Yeah, there's
It's
no focus
professional.
on that. Yeah.
What advice would you have for young professional women like starting their career to build their brand?
To build their brand, figure out what you want your brand to be before you try to copy someone else.
I like that.
And then may everything that you put out there go through the filters of the 4 things you want to be known for. Or the
What
2
are your
things you
4
want to be
things?
known for. If I had to like define it quickly, it would be big-hearted, badass thought leader,
Yep.
female,
Yeah, I see,
female
like-
entrepreneur.
I see the theme of excellence a lot too when I was like, stalking you. And I love that. I love that you emphasize that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We've written those out, and I should have them more memorized, but it would
It's
be
okay,
big-hearted, badass thought leader, female entrepreneur. But I don't say.
That's okay.
That's what kind of means by hardcore.
What are you top 5% in the
Yeah.
world at?
Top 5% in the world. I heard that question and I was like, one of the biggest struggles women have is self-promotion whatsoever. But I would say that if I had to pick being top 5% in the world, I can identify the next hot spot. I can feel an area, I can go there and know its potential. So I have an incredible vision for what things can be, which can burn you on people actually, because not everybody wants to be everything they can be. But it has worked out overall. With everything in my life is seeing not what is, but what their potential is. be it an area or a person.
And your ability to do that has been through like putting yourself in situations where you learn and you gain that exposure?
Say that question again.
Like your ability to find hotspots is like comes from all the work you've done to like understand the industry, or are there other components you think that have contributed to that value add that you bring?
Sorry about those, Callie. Those are terrible.
I was taking pictures.
Oh, okay, good.
That's fine.
My ability to be able to identify hotspots comes from, yes, experience being around it, working for free. Again, I thought a lot of things would work, but I would see why they didn't work. And that's a great thing. If you're going to be all in like I was, to learn in a safe environment is huge. If not, you can get knocked out of the game. So by serving someone else and making them great and making them a lot of money and giving them new ideas and creating value, I was so safe. If not, I would have tried so many things. I would have gone bankrupt really early on. I would have never gotten a chance because I would have made so many stupid mistakes. And that's not to say out of fear, you need to know everything, but I learned enough to get me going. And so by seeing what wouldn't work was huge. And then honestly, by creating challenges, like if my vision is to develop third world countries, how do you make something that nobody believes in work? What is its potential? So I actually just came from a big church, the 6 acres in a really rough part of town, and I got to sit with them and say, do you know if you activate, I'm not going to do it for you, but if you activate this section of property, you would never have to ask for another donation again. Realize the highest and best use of this, and this is what will work, but you need to get rid of this. You know, and so just having that, if your life depended on it, how would you make this work? I ask myself that every day. How would you make that work? You may not be willing to put in the time.
Yeah.
But if you did, how would it? And then you just
exercise.
Yeah, and then I document everything. Not naturally organized at all, but had to be. And that's another thing is there's so many personality tests and all this crap that people are like so stuck in my identity as an introvert or whatever you are. Do not get stuck in a stupid label. Do not get stuck in a stupid label. Adapt to whatever the frick you have to be what you want to be. I don't care what you are naturally. Figure out what you need to be, and then you'll become that naturally. Don't say, I learned how to crawl, and this is who I am. It's just who I am. It's what I'm gonna. This test. Great. But where do you want to be? Learn how to walk, learn how to run. So that's a really annoying thing that I think people in the information age that we live in get stuck on, is their weird identity based on some test. Adapt.
Advice do you have for people starting their career in real estate that want to start their own development company?
Development company.
Like real estate development.
Yeah. My advice is read Rich Dad Poor Dad, of course. Read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He's the best. Read Outwitting the Devil. Those have nothing to do with real estate, but they're awesome for your mind because you're going to need it. Find someone you want to be like. Find a way to serve them. Then start out being a bird dog, which means go find deals for them. And you should not charge anything to be a bird dog. And that's where most people get knocked out of the game, is they get real cocky and they're like, you need to pay me. And I'm like, you're bringing crap deals. Just for the time it takes us to look at your thing, you should pay me to tell you why this is a bad deal. So as a bird dog, don't charge anything. Once you're worth a crap and somebody buys 5 projects from you, then you can be a wholesaler, so you can get something on contract, you know what they want, you can charge a fee, sell it to them. And then I normally say to be a rehabber. It is really hard, but it's good for you to learn how to be a rehabber and take something. It's also a lot cheaper to get in the business. Do not rehab historic homes until later. Start with something newer and then eventually get into old houses because they're just way harder. I've done a lot of them. I love doing them. They're beautiful, but they will kill you in the process. They will destroy every molecule of your being in the process of rehabbing a historic home. After that, you can start doing new construction. But you need to have the right relationships and you need to practice in all those areas until you can do new construction. After you do new construction, you can start tying up multiple parcels. Then with those multiple parcels, you can start learning how to do that, and then you can do big ones and be a developer. That's every single step that you should do.
That was great.
That was amazing.
That was more.
You better